Okay, we're starting today in Daf Lamed on top, and the two dots. Hayash Shoichet Vihitis. So we have over here a difficult transition from the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that when you shoichet and he in the middle of the shechita, he's going and cutting off the neck. So the Mishnah says that if yesh basakin miloy tzovar, if the knife is long enough to cover a full neck, so then the din is ksher. Okay? And the next sentence says, if he's cutting two heads, so if the sakin has meloy tzovar echod, ksher. What does it mean? Says the Gemara. It's not enough to have the length of the neck, but it has to be the neck plus. Well, how much plus? Doesn't mean that's supposed to be the length of the neck, and then out of that, the length of the neck. The avoli trait savor, I mean the total length of the knife is the length of two necks. Maybe it means it's a little bit more than one neck. Says more Toshbaya. Let's go see the next part of the Mishnah. It's going to have two heads in one shot. If you have the sakin, the length of a neck is kosher. What does it mean? Means only the length of one neck. That can't be. When you have one animal, you need to have the length of a neck plus. That doesn't make any sense. It has to be longer. Meaning, when you want to cut two animals, the length of the knife needs to be the length of two necks plus another neck, meaning three necks. So you see from here, it needs to be a size of three necks by two animals, and by one animal, two necks. Now here, there's a huge machlokes b'shonim. Machlokes a poskim. What exactly is he? How exactly is he cutting? When we're saying that he needs to have the size of two necks, so what does it mean? The most machmir shita says, if this is the animal, he's starting to cut, so he needs to go through the entire knife until the other edge. That means, let's say this is the animal, the knife is over here, he needs to start over here, and go until he gets to the other side. Meaning, use the entire length of the knife, which is two necks, on one neck. That's the most machmir shita. The most makel shita is that he starts in the middle, meaning the knife is already on top of the neck. So this is the neck. On top of the neck, he puts the knife. The knife is the size of a full neck, and then he goes and he finishes the whole thing. And there's a shita in the middle. So there's different shitas. What does it mean? What does it mean that you're using a full knife? How much you have to use? That's one very big discussion. Another huge discussion that we're showing is, it says over here, when you have two animals, you have to have the size of three necks. What happens if you have the size only of two necks? So the Rishonim discuss about the fact that one animal will be kosher, the other one won't. But in what way will one animal be kosher and not one, not the other? This is a big discussion of Rishonim. Does it mean if it's too short, he goes one way, he goes back and forth? It's a huge discussion over here. So just to point out that these things over here, not like we're just talking about the pashut on the Gemara is the length of the knife, but how exactly it goes in practice, there's a whole big discussion. The first thing I mentioned, the Pri Megadim brings as a summary in Begil Hilchos Shchita, three different shitas. Okay, says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, that's only if he did one line. He went either backwards or forward in one time. So you need to have the full length. But if he's going back and forth, even a small knife will be okay. Talk about Ismail that has no horns. What does it mean? Rashi says that they used to do, you have a small knife, okay, it look like a pocket knife. They have this, for design purposes, they add to the knife some angles that make it sharp. So now you have a small knife plus sharpness on both sides. It's a problem. Because that could cut the neck. What about a needle? Can I use a needle to do a shechita? Only machto mivza boza. Needle doesn't cut; it punctures, and that's not shchita. So what about machto de ushpeche? Machto ushpeche is the shoemakers use, and that's a little thicker. It says in the Mishnah, even kosher, even something small. My love, machto de ushpeche. According to Anne, machto de ushpeche. Says the Gemara, loy izmel. Talk about the izmel is a small knife. Says the Gemara, oh, izmel be'edek ketani. That's exactly what it says in the Mishnah. Pirush kamifash. My kosher, what is kosher? Izmel. Chaim Mistabra, this is the Machta Dushpeche. You want to tell me it's this Machta Dushpeche? Hashto Machta Dushpeche Shayo Izmul Mibai. If Machta Dushpeche is mutter, so of course Izmul is mutter. So well, no, that's not a good Rayo. Izmul Yitzchak Leitzak Amino Ligzor Izmul Sheino Karnaim Atu Izmul Sheshlo Karnaim, because we said if he has horns, the problem. Kamash Malan. So what is the Gemara saying? The Gemara is saying that we don't have a raya from our Mishnah regarding the needle of a shoemaker. So what's clear is a regular needle, no good. Izmel is good if it has no horns. Which is the one that has that's a little thicker than a needle, but not as much as a knife, that we're not so sure about. Okay. Look the Mishnah. So that was a more technical about, which is hard for us, especially that, I don't know about you, but I never did shechita, so I don't know really, folk, I don't know, but it's more technical things, which knife to use and how. Now we're going back to another Mishnah. Naflo sakin v'shochto. A knife fell and did shechita. How about v'shochto kedarko? Psula. So it is a difficult scenario, but you have it. Put the knife in the window, blew wind, the knife fell and hit the animal. Perfect. Possible. You need to do zvicha. It has to be you. Can't be done on its own. So the Gemara, Taimo the naflo, because it fell on its own. I pilahu, but if he let it fall, I mean he threw it. He was holding it and he let it fall. Sheir. Even though there was no kavanah to do shchita. He just like he was holding a knife and it fell. Mantano de loibayin kavanah b'shchita. Who's the one that holds? You don't have to have kavanah when you do shchita. Although we saw that earlier in the Masechta. Rabbi Nosani, she says, Rabbi Nosani, Tanya, Shayo, Ze'iru, Dim Chavrayo, mentioned over there. I had a shum machshav on that. Why is it called the Shayo, Ze'iru, Dim Chavrayo? Hushayo, the small one among the friends. Rashi, Tiny says, that's what the Chido brings, is because there was two Shayos. What they know was there was the bigger one and the small one. But the first you say, it can't be, that's the only thing. Because it was a big unov. Small one from his friends. He says, Zorak Sakin Lineret Sabakor. So he takes a knife and throws it as a dart on the wall. And as it's going into shchita, it says that's kosher, even though he had no kavanah for shchita. So this is Rav Nosson. Say no, you have to have kavanah for something. We'll see in the morning what is it. We pass like Rav Nosson. Now what needs to be you don't have to have kavanah. So we already learned that. Kulam, we talk about the cheresh shidvikota. If someone sees it, they did it correctly, it's kosher. We learned it earlier. Who says you have kavanah? Cheresh shidvikota doesn't have kavanah. So already know that we're going like a nasa. It's not tzricha. The want to cut. They maybe don't have the right mindset to have kavanah shchita, but they do want to cut. They're taking the knife to cut. Here, he took the knife and he threw it. Who's the one who's throwing it by us? Letting it fall? Ibn Das. I need to tell you both. He tell you that even if you have no kavanah for any chaticha at all, I need to tell you that it can come even for non Das. Okay, and the Toys goes on to discuss that this is we're talking about Tzirchus Gabi the Mishnah, because really it's all the Yukim in the Mishnah.
Only with the Shitas Yachid that would come out that if you had Shechita without any kavanah.
Oh, so we're going to see that Rabbanan hold you need to have kavanah of chatichu. That in other words, where
just be falling by itself,
right? And no, not even falling itself doesn't work to everybody. But not even he took the knife and it dropped it. It has to be that he wants to cut something. That's what we're gonna see. Okay. So says the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Itmar Nido. This Gemara we're gonna see because we're gonna come back to our Mishnah to bring a right from here. So the Gemara starts like this: Nido Shenen Sovetova. It was an oinus, and she did tefillah. We'll see in a moment. The Gemara is going to explain how did it happen, the oinus. But she went to the mikveh basically without her mindset to go to the mikveh. So she's tar for her husband. That's good enough for her to be with her husband. You need to have das. Even for the husband, you need to have das when you go to the mikveh. According to Rav, that holds that she is good for the husband. But have a true how can that be? Ovon chorus with utro, you allow ovon chorus of nido. Yisur misa mibai. Truma is only misa. Hamalei bayi lechulini. For chulin lo buy a kavana. I don't need kavana by chulin. That's why it works. Mashake truma, you do have to have kavana. Says the Gemara, we know Tamer. How do we know that you don't have to have kavana on chulin? Then gal shenitlash ubar boim sayo. You have a wave coming from the sea or a river, and going up as the wave goes, and the wave has a lot of water, has 40 sayo in that wave. And it spilled on the Adam Kalim. My love, Adam doing the Kalim. You're comparing the Adam to the Kalim. My Kalim, the Pashas, Kalim have no Kavana because they don't have Das. Of Adam Nami, the Levi Kavana. Also, an Adam. Also the Adam Levi Kavana. So you don't have to have Kavana in the when the wave falls on the Adam. So you see over here that there's no Kavana. So who said? Maybe we're talking about he's expecting it. He's sitting underneath the sea and he's waiting for the waves to come. And he's going to get the wave on his head. And Mimela what? Continues to go on the Flamdaf base. The Kalim do with Adam. Maybe the Kalim is similar to Adam. Mao do the Bain Kavono. We know because Adam usually has Kavono as Das. Of Kalim Nami, the Kamikavan Adam. Most of the Kalim, they don't have the own Das. But maybe the owner of the Kalim had the Kalim there on the floor, waiting for the mikveh to go. If so, what's the Chiddush? Of course, why should it not work? So the Chiddush is as follows. Maybe you'll go into because of Chardas. Chardas, Rashi learns Chardas means a nitzoik, meaning you have water coming in a flow, and you don't have our boy set in one place, so it's not a good mikveh. Rashi learns not a good mikveh because of nitzoik, because it's connect going from above top to bottom. And you don't have a boy stay in one place. Taisus learns, so the reason why it's a problem is because it's zoichalim. It's not standing. Water has to be standing. So more says, so if Yeshiva so what will be the chiddush? You're going and you're standing and you're holding, you wait for it. The chiddush is maybe you'll do a gzeim shuchadash shkshamim. Not to keep it. You have to have the mikvah has to be connected to the ground. So when the wave goes up and hits the ground, it works. But if he does it in the air does not work. As the Gemara is going to say in a moment. So maybe you cannot do the bottom because maybe you'll do the top. And how do you know you can't do in the air? You can do the top, not the bottom. The bottom, not the top. You cannot do over. It has to be connected to the ground because it needs to be the idea of a mikvah is something which is connected to the ground. So to see if we find the Rashi has to be chuber lekarka. Okay, so that's the chiddush. Maybe it's the Gemara. Maybe he does have das, but the chiddush is that you can use the wave. Ela chulin delibay kavona miho mino. So how do we know chulin delibay kavona? Says the one did not pay rishon no flu toich amasamayim. You have fruits that fell into amasamayim, into the we have water. The amah that goes in the field. Uposhel mishi yodov tmeirus. The not one. Someone had his hands were tummy, and the fruits fall into the water. So he's going to pick up the fruits. He has no intention to wash his hands. Yodov teirus. Yodov teirus. Upeirus einam b'chiyuta. The parents don't have a din b'chiyuta. Chiyuta means they're kosher kabel tumah. He had no will. He didn't want the fruits to fall in the water. So the fruits falling to the water doesn't get extra to him. His hands are tahor because he went into the water. If he has intention to enjoy the water because he wants his hands to be clean, he says, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to pick up the fruits, and I'm very happy that they're there because it will clean my hands." So So again, his hands are tahor because now he wants it, but also the fruits because to a certain extent he's happy that the fruits fell into the water. So you see over here that what? You don't have to have kavanah to wash your hands. Says the Gemara. Hartman. Tova lechulin. Person went to the mikvah and he had in mind to be for the mikvah to be able to eat chulin. And that was his mindset to be chulin. Also lemaiser. He's still also lemaiser. Medak Rov has diuk. Not because he has an intention to go to the mikvah for chulin. But if he did not have intention, so then what? So then it's then he's not good for chulin either. Even though he had in mind for chulin, it wasn't just by mistake. He went to the pool. He went to he went to dip in the sea and he forgot about mikvah. Even though he had in mind, that's all nice. Hey, he went to the mikvah and no mindset to do anything. He's considered being going to the mikvah at all because he didn't have a mindset. In other words, no. He says kilo tova klal, meaning for meiser, but for chulin you don't have to have kavanah. Says the Gemara, who sovar the chuy kamat chile. He thought maybe he was and maybe he wasn't. Sometimes if you're shayla, not a good right, but really it's not a good answer. So Tay says, what do you mean? What do you mean? We just brought a raya regarding the fruits that fell into the water. That you put it inside. So maybe that you see it's a good raya. So he says there's a chiluk between body and hands. Hands is less chomedik tumo. So you're right. Regarding the yadayim, you have a good raya that the yadayim are tar. But now the guy called a goof. Maybe called a goof is different. That's why he says maybe it's not a good raya. Novak Dag Vashke went and checked out and found there's an interesting I think it was Chido was Novak Dag Vashkach was that they had they used to write the brises you're not supposed to write. But in order not to forget, sometimes they went outside of Bismandish. They had like a little bit of a hiding place where some wrote for themselves. It wasn't like public. So they were looking for braces. I remember something. He goes to his notes. Nofak, Dak, went out of the Bismandish and found. To someone who went to the mikvah and no chazaka, it works for chulin, not for meiser. So remember, Rabbi Yochanan said in Amud Aleph that when the woman falls into the mikvah, she's not Torah L'Beisa because she has to have kavanah. So it's a steer to Rabbi Yochanan. So the chubas over here is that when a mitzayro, when there is saras on the clothing, so the din is look at Rashi. It's a nice summary in Rashi. So Rashi now goes and says, "Nigei b'godim ksibu beis kibusim." Just twice that you do kibus. That's one time. So first time they go tzaras, they go clean it up, and then the kohen has to go and check it out. And after you put it for a week, you let it sit. Then while the week that they're waiting, the tzaras moved. So the first kibus is to check it out for the kohen to look at it. The second one, he goes, everything the tzaras is done. Now you can use it. Put it again in the mikvah. So you have two mikvahs. Says the Gemara, it says chubas one time, it says chubas second time. So I know it's twice. To tell you that the second one is similar to the first one. Same with the first boys has to be that you're doing it for das. So it has to be Ladas. Why? Because the kohen says v'tzivo hakohen v'chipso. So he doesn't just fall into the water. You have intention. So you have intention. So maybe you need the intention of a kohen. That's the intention of a regular adam. So you see over here that you need, even though the second mikvah is just to make a tar for himself, there's no other reason. You still have to have das. So that's a Rabbi Yechezkel. Rabbi Yechezkel knows that you need to have das when you go to the mikvah. Says the Matkal of Shim Vashum Yah Rabbi Yechezkel holds you have to have kavana when you go to the mikvah for chulin. For Rabbi Yechezkel, look at that Mishnah. Now we go back to our Mishnah. That's why we bring the whole sugya. Naflo sog v'shachto. If the knife fell and we said shchito, habish shog the gedar kapsulo. Fa'avir v'tam naflo ahi pilahu. Because the knife fell on its own, then it's no shchito. But he threw it shero. Fa'avik avdol lo michaven, even though there's no kavana. Fa'amino, and we're saying, man taradol by kavana shchito. Who's the one that holds no kavana shchito? Omar Rover Abanosani. Every says holds no kavana, and that's a stam mishnah. Every holds like a stam mishnah. So you see, you don't have to have kavana by chulin by shchita. The most understands there's no difference in shchita and mikvah. In both cases, it should be okay. Says the Gemara, the shchita afilu Rabbi Yonasan ben Yosef. The Yosef over here is moidi. No, shchita is different than mikvah. Even though mikvah you have to have kavana, shchita not. Why? We learn the special pasuk that you can have misasik v'kochim. As we said, that's what we learn, and then Maseches Chagiga, Maseches Menachos. The last word of Maseches Menachos was you can have misasik. Not by kochim you can be misasik if you have kavana. Chuli not. So the special limud, the shchita does not have to have kavana. For Rabbanon, now we have Rabbanon against Rav Nosson. Rabbanon, the argument of Rav Nosson, they hold, we said before, Amud Aleph, you have to have kavana. So that's what we said before. You have to have kavana to cut. You have to kavana to shchita. You're right. Misasik is okay. But you have to have kavana to cut. The knife has to be, you can't just throw the knife. You have to be cutting something. You think you're cutting up a pumpkin, as we'll see in a moment, and you're cutting an animal, it works. Even according to Rabbanon. So it comes out like this. According the kavana, according to Rav Nosson, you have to be the one throwing it. According to Rabbanon, you have to have kavana to do a chaticha. By mikvah, we have shchita. Mikvah no have to have a full kavana. So the following thing made Rav Nosson win the argument with Rabbanon. Michtiv v'chotachto. Does it say in the pasuk cut? There's a lot of taktiv. Ibein kavana chaticha afilu zvichu nam liboi. Ilo ibein kavana zvichu chaticha nam liboi. How do you know to differentiate between what Rabbanon say? You have to have kavana to cut. Why? And the Torah is zvachto. Zvachto means to do zvicho. And why you say zvicho, the Torah is without kavana. So how should you have to have kavana for chaticha? What does it say that? So in other words, the Torah would never differentiate. The Torah would say v'chotachto. It would say, oh, Torah says you have to have chaticha. The Torah never said it. The Torah says v'zavachto. And you agree you have to have kavana v'zvicho. So when does it come to the source? You have to have kavana for chaticha. Says the Gemara, echidami neither shenen sovetov. What is the case? We said, going back to the beginning of the sugya, and without the nida, she went to the mikvah b'oinis. Well, what is the case? If we talk about that her friend put her in the mikvah, kavono the chaverto kavono me'alsi, the kavono of the friend works, right? If not only the kavono of the friend works, it works even for truma. We said it. We're talking about discussing about chulin. And we said truma. Of course, you have to have kavana. Kavana of a friend works for a friend. How do we know that? Then you have a deaf mute, one who has no das, a blind person. Vishenitra for daito, lost her mind. The difference between nitra for daito and shaito is it something that happened later in life? Or that's how she was born. And yes, if there is other woman. So the other woman can put in the mikvah and she's like, it means the das of somebody else works. So as long as somebody here has kavana for this mikvah, and the mikvah works.
Meaning preparing them to go to the mikvah?
No, they put them in the mikvah, take them and put them into the mikvah. So you see over here, so any kavana works. You have to have the kavana of the person going to the mikvah to be somebody else. Oh, so Omar Papa. Le'av Nason should have from the Geshem. According to Rav Nason that she fell from the bridge. For Rabbanon, she Rabbanon is she went to cool off. Meaning, according to Rav Nason that says by Shchito, you need to have what? You need to have at least kavana. You don't have no kavana at all. Same thing on mikveh. You don't have kavana at all. So it means she was walking on a bridge and she slipped and fell. She had no kavana to go to in the water. She's actually upset because all her clothes got wet. In the case of no chatzitza, the mikveh works. That's called oinus. According to Rabbanon, they have to have kavana to do something. Even though mikveh, she didn't go for the mikveh. She went to swim. And then she wears ups. You know what? Actually, he go to mikvah. So that will be the oinus, and now we'll compare it to shchita. Let's go and get it to the Mishnah. So the Gemara. Homer Ravo, shochat paro v'shochat beima cheres imo lidivya kol psul. So what are we talking about? You have paradumo. You're shechting with the paradumo. Why are you shechting paradumo? He's shechting with it another chulin. Why? So look at what Rashi. Last Rashi in the moment. Divyakol por psul machas melocha cheres ubeimo ksheru. Meaning the paradumo. You're not allowed to do another melacha paradumo. It has to be pure for the paradumo. Whenever you do another melacha with the paradumo, it ruins the paradumo. Yes, he's cutting together two animals. We said the Mishnah. He got two animals. So you now do paradumo pure. So it becomes psul. So continues the Gemara from the base of Amud Aleph. Nishcheto be'imachir simo. He didn't have kavana to do it. Just happened. He was shechting the paraduma, and so happened to be that another animal came there and shecht it. So then Rav Nason parabsulo be'imaksheru. So according to Rav Nason, that you hold that you don't have the kavana and shchito. So the paraduma is psula because there was another melacha, and the be'im was ksheru. You don't need that. You have to have kavana. L'Rabbanon pork sheiro be'ima psula. Why? Because the paro, the be'ima psula, he had no kavana for cutting it. He was doing this to the paro, and then something else happened when he had no kavana for the next animal. He'd have at least a kavana for that cutting. So the chiddush over here. But according to Avnasa, so according to Rabbanon, the other shechita did not work. So it's not considered to be a melacha that's placed on the paro. In other words, here's the chiddush. Paro adum is nifsa when you do another melacha. But it has to be an effective melacha. It has to be a melacha that came to fruition.
Oh, they have to have kavana.
He had no kavana. I'm saying, but if it is effective, even though he had no kavana, it works.
If it's not possible.
Right. Look at Lashon Rashi. One of Pork Shero, in the first narrow line. That shchitas beim was chuli lav shchite. Umishum melacha lekel mifsal. Tishaloi miskaben lo mikri oisik melacha chers. That if you have no kavana, there's no melacha chers. The time of the melacha acheres should the meisich daite poyer. What's the melacha acheres? Hesech hadas. Ve'echado is kaven melacha acheres like hesech hadas. That's what we're going to say in a moment. And according to Rav Nason, even though there's no das, but it says Rashi brings the pasuk says shachat oisa v'lo oisa v'chaverto. So that's a paradigm that does not work by Rav Nason because it's effective. Says the Gemara, so the Rabbanan pork sheira because it wasn't effective. And Be'im Psula because there's no kavan. Pshita. I mean, that you can determine based on everything we learned before. It says that I have to tell you that the other Be'imo is it's this idea according to Avnos. Says the animal had something with it. Because that's only when you have two paradumas. So it says oisav v'lo oisav v'chaverto means only a chaverto do medida. Ava be'emo dechuli de'emaloi kamash v'lan. In other words, I would say maybe there's no issue over here. Maybe the zeres akosov shavat oisav v'lo oisav v'chaverto is only when you're doing two paraduma. But to do one paraduma and the other one is not paraduma, maybe there's no issue. So according to us, the both be kosher because the paraduma doesn't have another paraduma with it, and he wasn't a sekadas, no problem in sekadas. So and the other one was no kavana. Kamashmalan, the oyster chaverto is that any other animal is placed in the paradumo. So you made it like this: mitzad the paradumo that you're doing something with it, you have to have kavana because it only has if no sekadas is not a problem. So there's no issue here of sekadas. Problem is they have exercise cost of oyster chaverto. But if they do oyster chaverto is only another para, the shear then that's where the paradumo is possible. The animal is kosher. Now the Gemara concludes. He's trying to cut the animal and to cut with it a gourd or a pumpkin. So he's doing another malacha. So everybody agrees it's possible because another is eves chadas. It's a malacha. Nichtechod la'asimo. He's cutting the animal, and another, he doesn't realize that right next to the animal there's a pumpkin. Why? Look at Lashon Rashi. I'll just finish with Rashi over here. The last two Rashis before the Mishnah. Chotach la'asimo divrei kol psulo da'melochi. Nichtechod la'asimo kol ksher de sheloi b'chavona loi mikri oisig b'melocha. There's no kavana. For Rishon is the time nechtiv v'shochet oisig lo chaver timo. Shlo kavona nam mishlo shchito. So that's a technical thing that you can't do another shchita. But here you're not doing shchita, you're just doing a cutting. And you have no kavana, so you have no esechadas. So that's why the paraduma will be kosher. So Gomer, stop over here. Baruch Hashem.